Hi, everyone.
Greetings. Finished Mystery, page 121. They're still in the chapter 6 Seals and the Papacy. This is the sixth seal that they're unpacking for us. And we're just going to read the one verse that's relevant to what they're interpreting on page 121, which is
verse 14 of Revelation 6. And the heaven departed as a scroll that is being rolled up, and every mountain and every island was removed from its place.
What are they going to do with this? Some of it's going to be the same. They still do. That is the general pattern, the hermeneutical interpretive method they use. But in its application, it's all over the place, and most of it's gone now. So here's what they say. I'm going to be reading it from the page, but if my eyes fail me, I have it up on the screen from Internet Archive, so I might resort to that if I can't bring it into focus. They say about the heaven departed as a scroll, and this is a direct quote, by the way, from the Battle of Armageddon, which is also called the Day of Vengeance, the fourth volume of Russell, of the Studies in the Scriptures. Russell said, "The sure word of prophecy indicates very clearly that the various Protestant sects will form a cooperative union or federacy, and that Catholicism and Protestantism will affiliate, neither losing its identity. These are the two ends of the ecclesiastical heavens, which, as their confusion increases, shall roll together as a scroll." And they reference Isaiah 34:4, which we'll get to in a minute. For their self-protection, they will roll together as a scroll, Russell says, as distinct and separate rolls, yet in close proximity to each other. Do they believe today that Protestantism and Catholicism will one day merge before the millennium comes? They don't, do they? They believe that the entire church will be devoured very shortly in its present situation, apparently. So that's a false prophecy. But the signs of the times, as Russell saw them when he wrote The Battle of Armageddon in the 1890s, suggested that Christendom uniting was a possibility. I don't know what he saw, but he obviously thinks that it's the interpretation. But would you ever get that from the text itself? The heaven departed as a scroll is about Christian denominations?
It indicates very clearly. That's what he said.
And then he quotes again, the Finished Mystery quotes again from the same volume, the Battle of Armageddon, volume 4, but from a much later page. So obviously throughout the original book, which was quite big, it's the biggest of the Studies in the Scriptures, by the way. And the Day of Vengeance idea, well, before the Day of Vengeance comes, because that was the original title of the Battle of Armageddon, he says all of this. He says, "It will be impossible to reestablish the present order, first, because it has evidently outlived its usefulness and is inequitable under present conditions. Second, because of the general diffusion of secular knowledge. Third, because the discovery that priestcraft has long blinded and fettered the masses with error and fear will lead to a general disrespect for all religious claims and teachings, as of a piece with the discovered frauds." Well, this is all misguided because none of this happened. The church didn't feel the necessity to pull itself together because of the general disrespect for the creeds and religious belief in general. And fourth, he says, because religious people in general, not discerning that God's time has come for a change of dispensation, will ignore reason, logic, justice, and Scripture in defending the present order of things.
So they're unreasonable, illogical, and don't listen to Scripture because they don't agree with you.
And this will all happen, as we know from elsewhere in the Battle of Armageddon and from the other volumes and the Finished Mystery. Well, this will all happen between 1914 and 1918, when the churches will be destroyed and the churchgoers by millions, it says in this book. He also says it will be of little consequence then that the ecclesiastical heavens, that is, the religious powers, papal and Protestant, will have rolled together as a scroll. So he's referencing the same false prophecy. And again, he references Isaiah 34:4. The combined religious power of Christendom will be utterly futile against the rising tide of anarchy when the dread crisis is reached. Before that great army, all the rest of heaven, that is the church nominal, is in a bracket, shall be dissolved, and the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll. And you know from elsewhere in this book, The Finished Mystery, that that's all to happen between 1918 and 1920. We wanted to, though, go to the text that is referenced in both those samples from the Battle of Armageddon, which is Isaiah 34:4, where they somehow think this is an explanation of Revelation 6, verse 14. So what does the whole context say, though? Not just the verse, but I think we should read 1 to 5 maybe and get the context.
Okay. Come close to hear, you nations, and pay attention, you peoples. Let the earth and that which fills it listen, the land and all its produce. For Jehovah's indignation is against all the nations, and his wrath is against all their army. He will devote them to destruction. He will give them to slaughter. Their slain will be thrown out, and the stench of their carcasses will ascend. The mountains will melt because of their blood. All the armies of the heavens will rot away. This is the verse they say to pay attention to. All the armies of the heavens will rot away, and the heavens will be rolled up like a scroll. All their army will wither away, as a withered leaf falls from the vine, and a shriveled fig from the fig tree. And then verse 5 says, For in the heavens my sword will be drenched. It will descend on Edom in judgment.
Well, why have you left out that little detail at the end that makes all the difference? This is something about Edom, and it does involve other nations, but by linking it directly to Revelation 6:14, you've missed a very big point, namely that you've got it that the heavens has something to do with denominations, and the heavens has something to do with ecclesiastical power and church nominal, as you put it.
So you don't mention Edom at all. And the end of that verse was, on the people whom I devoted to destruction.
Why did he devote Edom to destruction? Because of their opposition
of
of
his
Israel.
people, Israel.
So just read the context, both the verses here that we just read, and the chapter before and the chapter after, and you'll find their restoration promises about Israel. And you've taken our attention to one verse out of the middle chapter between these two Israel references. And you've also taken our attention to one verse where you get the idea that heavens and earth, therefore, are symbolic. Heavens, obviously, the way they're interpreting it here and here in Finished Mystery, is they're assuming symbolic of something to do with Christendom and
Do you want me to read those things about the mountain and the hill here?
So what are they going to do with the mountain and the hill that is also mentioned in 6:14 and partially in Edom?
They say, and every mountain means kingdom.
Every mountain means kingdom.
An island hill, or little hills, refer to the governments less autocratic than the monarchies, but hills sometimes refer to the sharpest, highest, most jagged mountain peaks, and then mean the most autocratic of all governments. This is evidently what is meant here.
So mountain and hill can't mean mountain and hill?
I guess not. You know, this, to me, they still do this. It's, when you hear mountain, you automatically think kingdom. I mean, in the Pure Worship book, they still refer to it as like mountains. All the governments are mountains. But it's like an automatic switch in your head goes, mountain, kingdom.
Yes, that's true. So the obvious question we have to ask is, who says?
They do.
Didn't we just read, though, in the previous verses about a great earthquake like no other earthquake in history? So this is actually a follow-up on that remark. Now, where do you read about a great earthquake like no other that's ever occurred nor will occur again? Well, you hear about that in Matthew, about the Great Tribulation. So you could say, well, that's kind of spiritual, isn't it? That's not a spiritual application. Well, no, it's a literal tribulation on a literal earth in a literal place. Armageddon, it's called. And if you go elsewhere, it's in and around Jerusalem, in Revelation as well as in the prophets. But more than that, mountains and hills in Scripture are connected to geography and topography.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of course, Zechariah 14. We'll link our videos about Zechariah 14. But the same idea in the Gog of Magog prophecy, Ezekiel 38:39. There's a great earthquake that occurs, and all the creatures of the earth know that God is here, just by the manifestation on a physical level of God Himself.
Yeah.
In Zechariah, it's Yahweh again landing on the Mount of Olives. So this is an Old Testament idea. Unless you know what that idea is and believe it, you can't interpret any of this properly. You'll always go the same route as the Watchtower and make it all symbolic of things that are in your narrative.
The thing is, you don't make all of it spiritual. You make some of it spiritual and some of it literal. So, like, take any of your favorite passages or memory passages when you're a witness about what you think the play out will be about paradise on earth. Just take one of those passages and read through it and then ask yourself, is this literal or spiritual? And you'll see this flipping back and forth within a single text. And who says? Who says this is spiritual and this is literal? Why can't we believe what it says?
Well, again, going back to the first reference here in the first paragraph, the heaven departed as a scroll, you say it very clearly indicates some kind of cooperative work between Protestantism and Catholicism. You've dropped that yourselves. It never meant that, and you've admitted that by changing the application. But what does it very clearly say in the New Testament? And in passages that you even know, if you're a Jehovah's Witness, like Matthew 24, you have Jesus saying, the love of the greater number will cool off. He's indicating many will fall away on account of lawlessness. That word there is the verb form of the word apostasy. Where do you read about apostasy in the New Testament? Right there, falling away of many. From what? The faith. So that's what prophecy actually says about the last days, and Paul himself says in 2 Thessalonians 2 that the second coming cannot happen. The presence of the Lord, parousia, cannot happen unless the great apostasy comes first. That's the only time Paul ever uses the noun apostasy, except when he himself is accused of apostasy. That's in Acts 21. He's accused of apostasy, but he never uses it in any of his pronouncements about the correct interpretation of prophecy, except in 2 Thessalonians. So put that together with what you read in Matthew 24, and you see what the New Testament very clearly says. The church will apostatize, not at the beginning of history, that is church history, the second century, but at the end. So it's the opposite of what you anticipate here, although you have a little bit of a clue that the churches will want to amalgamate. You've kind of admitted that that's part of your prophetic picture, but you haven't made the link to the apostasy text because you believe the apostasy was at the beginning.
Yeah, and you date things where it doesn't date things.
Much more to say, and there's going to be a lot of chance to do that because we've got at least another 500 pages to go, right, in the finished mystery.
Okay, so we're going to link to the earthquake that shook 2 Jehovah's Witnesses out, and then just follow the links because it's dealing with Zechariah 14.
I think there's 6 videos altogether, but the first one will be on your screen, the quake one. See you next time.